Hello, this is Mr. Benson here, and we're looking at Mary, Queen of Scots, and why she was so important during the reign of Elizabeth I. Elizabeth, as we all know, had no children. She didn't get married, so the heir to the throne was Mary, Queen of Scots, the rightful heir. Actually, some believe she was the rightful queen, and Elizabeth shouldn't have been queen because they didn't recognise the divorce that had taken place between Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, which had a knock-on effect, etc. So there was some different ways of looking at this, depending on who you were at the time. Now, if we take a look at Mary, Queen of Scots, she was a character who was chased by all sorts of scandal. She was accused of murdering one of her husbands. Scandals and royalty do not mix. They do not mix. Elizabeth knew this all too well when she refused to marry her lover, in inverted commas, Dudley, because it was suspected he'd thrown his wife down the stairs. He hadn't at the time, but they didn't know that. And Elizabeth was wise. She knew that it just didn't mix. Now, it certainly didn't mix for Mary, Queen of Scots. She was forced to abdicate. She was put into prison by the lords, Protestant lords now in Scotland, as Scotland moved to be a Protestant country. Mary, Queen of Scots escaped. She came over the border to England. She wanted help from Elizabeth, her cousin, her first cousin. And Elizabeth took her under her wing and looked after her, in inverted commas, putting her in prison in Carlisle. I say prison, inverted commas, house arrest, keeping an eye on her, whatever term you want to use. Now, the problem is, as soon as she stepped foot in the country, it's a real problem for Elizabeth I, and we have to look at a number of reasons why this is. Now, let's make sure we've got the right Mary first of all. Some students do get them confused because Mary the First was Elizabeth's half-sister who came before her. This is Mary, Queen of Scots, a totally different one. And Mary's threat to Elizabeth became really apparent as soon as she stepped foot on English soil. Now, let's look at the religious angle, because Elizabeth is a Protestant. She's trying to rebuild England into a Protestant country after her sister, her half-sister, Mary I, Bloody Mary, had re-Catholicized England after Henry VIII and Edward VI. And Elizabeth is trying to create this Protestant church. The last thing she needs is Mary, Queen of Scots, the heir to the throne, being a Catholic. And if Elizabeth dies, England could then become a Catholic nation once again. And Elizabeth doesn't want that, and the Privy Council doesn't want that. And England is moving to this great Protestant state, which is hanging on a thread, to be honest. Now, with Mary, Queen of Scots in the north, she becomes a focal point, a real focal point for the Catholics. So if we look at the geography of this, to go a little bit deeper, most of the Catholics, not all, but most of the Catholics, their heavy areas of Catholicism were in the north of England, especially Lancashire, not limited to. And here we have Mary, Queen of Scots, who could be a focal point for rebellion, which is a nice term to use, in the north as well, which has increased the threat towards Elizabeth. Now, if we look at the different factors here that I've put in different colours, let's look at the claim to the English throne. Let's go through this again. So Mary was a descendant of Henry VII, the first Tudor monarch, and therefore she has a legitimate claim to the English throne. There is a problem of some people believing that she should be the queen at that moment, and many English Catholics supported Mary and really wanted her to be the queen over Elizabeth. Let's look at the religious threat. Mary's the Catholic. Elizabeth has established the church, the Protestant church. Mary's Catholic faith has made her this symbol for opposition amongst England's Catholics, who are still in the majority at this point in England. Many English Catholics see Mary as a potential leader to rise up and become this great Catholic queen and restart the Catholic Church. Plots and involvements. Mary was involved in several plots against Elizabeth. The most notable, of course, was the Babington plot, where she was caught red-handed by Elizabeth's great spy network under Sir Francis Walsingham. And this is the one that led to Mary Queen of Scots being executed. Elizabeth did not want to execute her for a number of reasons. First of all, she was technically, even though she abdicated and been overthrown in inverted commas, she was technically an anointed queen in the eyes of God. Elizabeth did not want to go against God. She was a cousin, family. She doesn't want to execute her own cousin. But also she's worried about the potential reaction from the Catholic countries on the continent, especially France and Spain. England is surrounded by Catholic states until Scotland became Protestant. But there is this link between Scotland and France, the Auld Alliance, AULD. Scotland and France are allies and do support each other, as we've seen on a number of occasions throughout history. So that's something for Elizabeth to think about as well. Let's have another look at the green parts here. Elizabeth and her advisors believed Mary was this huge threat, a huge figurehead, and these foreign powers could support her. And there's a huge list of plots and rebellions and protests and all of these things. As a student, you need to understand. International factors. Mary's connections to France, where she had been married to the French king. That reinforces the friendship that I was talking about. France and Spain, both Catholic powers, of course, potential allies of Mary, could have supported her claim to the English throne. Elizabeth is aware of this. Elizabeth feared that Mary's presence could lead to an international conflict. So let's have a look at this summary. Mary's claim to the throne, her Catholic faith, her involvement in plots against Elizabeth, and her connections to foreign powers made her a constant, significant threat to Elizabeth's rule. And the key point is the moment she set foot on English soil. Now, having a quick look at the GCSE textbook here, there's a number of things that I can add. Parliament does not trust Mary. They do not want her left free to cause trouble. Some MPs are demanding Mary should be executed for stirring up rebellions. They were ahead of Elizabeth and wanted her executed straight away. And of course, Scotland, as we said, now this Protestant country, and Elizabeth was thinking, well, we could have good relations with Scotland. Mary, Queen of Scots, is really in the way there. So as a student, what you would need to do is make sure you know the name of all the rebellions and the dates, the people who were involved and the threat levels, always bringing it back to Mary, Queen of Scots, and the part that she played, why she was so significant, the threat that she posed, and how that had a knock-on effect when dealing with all the other things that were happening at the time. Then and only then, when you've got all that information, can you make a judgment on how big a threat Mary, Queen of Scots, really was.